Okay, well, we're 1 minute past the hour and we have a ton of content to cover today, so I'm going to get started. Welcome everyone to our webinar, ADU Construction 101. We are going to be talking about all things ADU construction methodology today, and we are very excited to get into the nuts and bolts. But before we get started, I want to do some introductions. My name is Anna Alexeyeva, and I'm the director of the ADU Resource Center of San Mateo County. Today, we are joined by several industry experts who together have worked on hundreds of ADUs across the Bay Area. And they are going to be the ones walking us through the different types of construction methods that you might want to explore for your ADU project. So I'm excited and very thankful to be joined by Eddie Stalik and Sarmad Khalaf of EDR Design Build, Carrie Shores-Diller of Inspired ADUs, and Fatima Shahid of Roof and Realm. They're going to have a chance to introduce themselves in a little bit once we get into the meat of the discussion. And each of them is going to be covering three of the primary building methodologies that we want to talk about today for ADUs, which are stick-built construction, panelized construction, and modular. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes I want to mention. I wanted to note that the ADU Resource Center is a nonprofit, so as such, we are not endorsing any particular company or any particular service. Having said that, we do really appreciate Carrie, Eddie, Sarmad, and Fatima being here and lending their time and expertise today. We do have Q&A enabled, so you can enter questions into the chat and all of us panelists will be able to see them. We're going to try to go through as many questions as we can, probably at the end, time permitting. But if we don't get to any of your questions, we will circulate answers as a follow-up to this. Also, as a follow-up, please know we are recording this webinar, so you'll be able to see these slides and the recording of the presentation on the ADU Resource Center's YouTube channel and on our website as well. And you can have the session translated via the CC button that you have in the bottom of your Zoom screen. I want to talk just for a second about the ADU Resource Center, which is hosting this webinar. We are a nonprofit whose mission is to help peninsula homeowners and jurisdictions add more housing to the community by building more ADUs. Our role is educational in nature, and you can find a number of helpful resources intended for homeowners on our website, smcadu.org. We serve residents in 16 of the peninsula's jurisdictions, and we do educational events like this one. We do free feasibility consults for residents of member jurisdictions. We have, as I mentioned, a number of resources that you can download and look through on our website. One particular note I want to call out is next weekend, Saturday, March 21st, we're going to have an in-person event in San Mateo. It's going to be a series of fireside chats with experts talking about all parts of the ADU process, from permitting through construction, financing, insurance. If you're interested in getting a free ticket, you can visit our website and learn more there. Before we get into the different construction types, I want to talk a little bit generally about the ADU process and some things that you need to be aware of regardless of what construction methodology you end up going with. So on our website, you're going to find, like I said, a number of resources, including a step-by-step guide like this one about the ADU process. I'm going to talk a little bit in the next couple of minutes about a few things. First, I'm going to talk about state laws. I'm going to talk a little bit about site conditions, and I'm going to talk about utilities. And these are factors and considerations that you're going to need to think through as you're getting started and as you're learning the rules. So ADU state laws. One of the reasons that we are experiencing an ADU boom here in California is because the state, over the course of about 10 years, has made it progressively easier and easier to build ADUs. There have been a number of state laws that have been passed that have made this happen, but some of the most impactful ones are listed here. First thing to know is all ADUs that meet certain design and development standards that are outlined in state law get ministerial approval. This is a planning term that means that there's no discretionary review, there are no public hearings, and all ADU permits are supposed to be approved with an asterisk within 60 days. Now, that 60-day timeline we know from experience is not always met, but that is the state expectation. There are also protections built into state law for certain types of ADUs. These include junior ADUs. Junior ADUs are units that are built from conversions of existing living space or an attached garage, and they're under 500 square feet. There are also protections for detached ADUs that are under 800 square feet and for ADUs that are converted from existing structures on your property. What I mean by protections is that there are very few local rules that can intervene with your ability to build these types of ADUs. And so if any of these particular types of units are appealing for you, it's something that you should talk about with your design and build team early on because it can really give you a leg up in the permitting process. ADUs, thanks to state law, have lighter parking requirements than a lot of other construction. There are a lot of limits around HOA's authority in interceding with the ADU approval process. And one thing that a lot of people don't know is any single family lot across the state can actually have 4 ADUs built on it if they meet certain criteria. So this is one detached ADU if it's below 800 square feet, one JADU, one conversion ADU, and also one ADU that meets any local standards that are outlined by your jurisdiction. Now, this isn't going to be relevant for a lot of folks and homeowners who just have a regular sized lot, but it's an opportunity for some. And the last thing I want to note is that if you do have an unpermitted unit on your property, the state has made it significantly easier to legalize ADUs in the last year. So it's definitely something that you should look into if that's the case for you. One of the other areas that you're going to want to understand early on in your ADU project is what the site conditions of your lot are and how this might affect your ADU build. So here I've listed some site conditions that can increase the complexity or significantly increase the costs of your project. Hillsides, depending on steepness, may require different engineering specifications. If you're in a geohazard zone, there may be additional considerations that may impact your foundation needs. The soil conditions of your property are also really important, and in some cases, you'll be required to get a geotechnical report that shows how the conditions of your soil may affect the requirements of your foundation and other site prep requirements. If you're in a fire hazard zone, you are allowed to build an ADU according to state law, but there may be other challenges around fire regulations that you're going to need to work through. Similarly, if you're in a flood zone, you can build an ADU, but that may drive how you build. Water, sewer, and septic are really important factors that can be big cost drivers. If you're on a septic system, this can be a huge added cost and may require upgrades of your system capacity. If you're near a creek, there may be certain setbacks that affect where you can build on your property. And similarly with easements, utility easements are common. And so this is something that you might want to do some homework around early on by, for example, getting a title report from an escrow company to see if there are any recorded public utility easements on your property. And speaking of utilities, the last thing I want to talk about is the utilities side of the house. Utilities are also a big driver of timelines and costs. One thing we always advise is if PG&E is your provider, you need to be aware that there are very long lead times for getting connections and getting new meters set up. So as soon as you have permits in hand, it's good practice to apply for a service connection with PG&E so you can parallel process the utility connection and the construction and build as much as possible. There are also other utility issues that can drive up costs that are listed here. One very common one that I want to point out is that many jurisdictions may require you to upgrade your sewer laterals if they haven't been upgraded recently, and that's something that can be surprising to homeowners. In certain cases, utilities can end up comprising a really large portion of your project costs if you're unlucky. And there are certain circumstances that you have to deal with on your property. So it's something that you should really be thinking about and aware of and asking your team about early on. With that, I want to move into the main topic of today's discussion, which is the different construction methods that you may be considering for your ADU project. One thing that we counsel homeowners on when we speak with them in our feasibility consults is that no construction method is right for everyone. There's no right answer. Each comes with its own pros and cons, but there are some site conditions and some projects that may mean that they're better suited for one construction type versus another. And these are some of the nuances that we want to talk through with you today in today's discussion. So we're going to start with stick-built or site-built construction. We're going to move on to panelized construction, and then we'll end with modular. And hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A at the end as well. With that, I'm going to pass the mic to our friends at EDR Design Build to let them talk through what stick-built construction means and what you need to know about it.
Hi, I'm Eddie from EDR Design Build. So we can call it site build or stick build. It's pretty much the same thing. What stick build really is just like building a custom home, same methods, same everything, just on a very small scale. So why stick build construction? So stick build construction, we build on site, we build it piece by piece. We use the traditional wood framing, and the traditional wood framing is a system that's used by pretty much almost every builder in the Bay and anywhere in the United States. What the biggest advantage for traditional wood framing is that if you have maintenance in the future or anything is needed, most workers know how to work with traditional wood framing because it's pretty common. It's constructed entirely on the property from concrete foundation to pieces of wood and roofing, asphalt, what you already know from your um, different project that you may have done in the past. Same methods used for custom homes as well. When we build custom homes from scratch, we use the same thing. One thing that I want to mention is ADUs, they're very expensive per square foot because the same amount of work, like bringing the drain and bringing the water line and connecting it to the sewer lateral and all that type of stuff and running all the electrical is almost the same like a big home just on a smaller scale. So you have more work per square foot. And it's fully inspected by the city. So that's we're gonna go to the next slide. Um, and it's fully inspected in the city, and there's several inspections during the process. For an ADU, you have depends on the city between 12 to 15 inspections, and it takes longer to get approved. The first thing we do is design and engineering. So that's what Carrie is doing in Inspire ADU. They make construction plans, and we do that as well. So in the construction plans, you create architectural, you create the layout that you want, and then we are going to engineer it, do the energy calculations, submit it to the city, and we get the permits and approval. That alone depends on the city and your decision making process because that stick build process is usually for custom ADUs. Take between around 4 months from vision to approved plans, and then we have to build it just like a house. We do the foundation, the framing, we have inspections in between, electrical, plumbing, insulation, drywall, just like you are building a house. So the whole timeline would take between 6 to 10 months, depends on the size of the ADU. And echoing Anna from the first presentation, depends on the site condition. Are you on a hillside, earthquake zone, geological, and so forth? But that's a high level timeline of the process. That's a little longer than modulars. Could you move to the next one, please? So permits and inspections. The city oversight is at every stage, which makes the project takes longer. The first stage is when we do the forms for they check the rebar, and then they have special inspection where they check the bolts and earthquake. That's a third party company inspection during several inspection during the framing stage, during the rough stage, check the insulation, the nailing on the drywall, the waterproofing. Um, Shower pen, which is not here because the presentation is too the slide is too small. But there are about 12 to 15 inspections throughout the project, which makes it take pretty long. Again, depends on the square footage. If it's a 1200 full 3 bedroom 2 bath ADU, the whole process design build can take up to a year. We can go to the next presentation, please. The next slide, please. Customization and flexibility. The good thing is with a full stick built ADU, you can plan it any way you want. You can do 10-foot ceiling, you can do 9-foot ceiling, whatever the code allows. Obviously, you can do a two-story, you can make the roof line look different ways, nano doors. You pretty much can do whatever you saw on Instagram or TikTok, and we can make it happen. We can do higher ceiling, custom roof line. We can match the architectural to the house, the stucco, the siding, whatever it is. We can put very premium finishes. Actually, a lot of empty nesters, they move into the ADU and give their kids the house or rent the main house for profitability. So that's the advantage of customization. You can do smart home. You can do pretty much whatever you're doing when you build a custom home. You can move to the next slide, please. The pros are full customization. The resale value is much stronger because I don't know how it works with modulars. We don't do modulars, but with stick build, you can make the ADU because ADU can have detached, attached, and a garage or any space conversion to an ADU. So you can actually make the ADU an addition. So the resale value is very high. It's basically the same as the square footage of the house. I know that detached ADU probably have a little bit of lower resale value because not every buyer wants it. That you have to consult with your real estate agent. Seamless integration with main home. So if you make it an addition, it's pretty much the main home. If you do a good job, you wouldn't even know that it was added after the fact. There is no factory or prefab size limitations, and you can use any high-end finish that you want, as I mentioned earlier. Next one. Consideration, it's more on site in interruption to your day-to-day life. Construction activity, weather exposure during framing and foundation. When it rains, we cannot pour foundation. When it rains heavily, we cannot frame. The framing takes time to dry, so we have to have the plywood completely dry before we waterproof. So doing it during the winter will take a little longer, and it requires a very strong project management because you're not buying something from the factory. So if your superintendents are not great, or the subs are not coordinated, they could cause a lot of issues during construction. So it's very important to hire a very good contractor. So you can see our social media details below, of course. Next slide. Best fit for stick built ADUs are ideal for homeowners that want architectural control or want to live there. Multi-generational living. The parents, as I mentioned, are moving to the small space, and the kids with the grandkids moving into the house, or vice versa. Kids are, out of college. It's super expensive to buy houses. They want to save. ADU gives them the privacy that they want. Long-term rental investment. It's great. It's very solid. You can rent it out, tenant proofing it, and you can make, matching an existing high-end home. If you're in Hillsborough, Atherton, and the house built to really high specs, you can do it with, you can customize it any way you want, really. Maximizing property value, it does. You have to consult with your real estate agent. I know that attached ADU is the best way to maximize your property value because it's pretty much an addition. It's like if your house is 1,000 per square foot, it's probably gonna be the same if you're not exceeding a certain square footage. Next, please. Why stick build? When design, flexibility, architectural customization, and long-term value matters the most, stick build remains the gold standard, not because it's higher quality per se. It could be, depends on the modular, but because most people knows it, it's more familiar, and it's just a belief system of most people based on what we know. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. We one thing I want to ask you, and we'll do a little bit of a Q&A after each of these sessions.
Yeah.
What, in your experience, are the most common surprises or delays homeowners encounter during stick built construction?
Um, During the construction itself, they don't encounter many delays because we're very streamlined in our planning. Most of the delays would be during the actual design process. So the city of San Jose, for instance, they have only one person that check the ADUs, and they're I don't know how many applications there are. So usually the delays are during the interaction with the city. Unfortunately, they're not equipped to. Um,
To that, Eddie, I would say utilities. As you mentioned, Anna, in the beginning of the presentation, takes a very long time, especially for example, PG&E, your undergrounding, upgrading the electric meter and whatnot. That takes a long time, and they don't allow you to start the process until you have an ADU permit in hand and an address in hand, which you have to apply to a separate address depending on the city after the permit is issued. So these are the things that we, as soon as we have the permit in hand, apply for the new address, apply for PG&E upgrading the main panel basically to a dual meter main panel. So those are the things that usually I would say delay the project the most, which I think is true across any of the construction types that we're gonna talk about today.
Yep. Any other, I saw everyone's on camera, so if anyone else wants to add to this, okay, otherwise we will move on to panelized construction with Carrie.
Perfect. Thanks, Anna. And thanks to Eddie and Sarmad. We work with Eddie and Sarmad often, and they're a great group. They help us deliver a lot of our custom ADUs, as well as hopefully some of our panel kits in the future. So panel kits are not a new idea. Panelized kits are something that's came around with what they called SIPs, which is structurally insulated panels. And it's just a hybrid approach to how we build. You can see here, oops, if you go back once, Anna, thanks. This is some shop drawings we have, and this shows how this would be built as one panel in a factory, and then it would get flat packed and sent out to a site. Next slide, please. The hybrid approach takes kind of the best of Sarman Nedi's world and Fatima's world and kind of mixes it in. So we are going to make parts of the house in a factory that combines the efficiency of building in an enclosed space that doesn't, isn't influenced by weather if we're having a cold and wet winter. And it allows for easy installation once on the site. One advantage it has over modular, and again, with all of these methods, there's pros and cons to all of them. But for the panels, you don't need a crane, and that can help quite a bit on cost savings and access because some streets don't support that very well. So you'll see on the bottom left, we've got a foundation. And as Anna mentioned, no matter which method you choose, someone will be in your backyard installing a foundation and doing the utilities and either prepping to build traditionally with stick built, installing panels, or working with someone like Fatima by installing a modular that comes pre-done. So on the right, you can see a sequence of the team walking in the pre-made panels and standing it up. So this was an 800 square foot ADU in Berkeley, and the walls were all put in place in 2 hours and 25 minutes. So pretty fun to think about some of that efficiency in that regard. Next. So the GC still plays a huge role in panelized construction. As I mentioned, they're going to have to get the site ready. They're going to have to work on drainage. If you need to adjust the level of the soil or the earth so that you have the right slope around the ADU, they're going to pour the foundation. Then the panels arrive on a truck, and then they get stored on site, and then what we call stood up or installed on the foundation. So there is definitely still a lot of role for the GC in this piece. The city is still going to inspect panel kit construction. It's not like Fatima's project over at Roof and Realm, where they're a state inspection. These are all still done locally. We're just using some efficiency of framing offsite. Next. And with the panelized, you do get to control the outside, the materials you're using, the looks, the window and door package, as well as all of the interiors. We found that having done about 300 ADUs, these panel kits are really helping clients feel like they have enough expression where they can make choices to match their architectural style, and they can make decisions about what they want to do on the interior, but still have a little bit more efficiency. So it's been interesting to see how people respond. And I think part of that is that, the whole process of building the ADU is really fun, but it is overwhelming. There's a lot of decisions. You're building a whole house in the backyard. And I will say for modular, I think that is an advantage there because you have a really nice, simple, digestible amount of decisions that sometimes makes it easier. Next slide. With the efficiency of building in the factory, we do have this controlled environment. So the wood is nice and dry, everything's put together. The tolerance or how accurate or tight we're framing is improved in the factory just because we have, very flat level surfaces, controlled environments. It also helps accelerate the schedule. And as I mentioned, it gives us a nice cohesive aesthetic. So you can have the ADU match your main house, both in form and finishes. Next. So we like to try to err on the side of being cautious. I like to call myself a recovering optimist. So we've given broad timelines here, which are start to finish of from design to permitting to building. We'd rather lay out, worst case scenarios and then, do better than that. Everything, of course, can vary. They say in any project, you've got cost, quality, and time, but you can only pick two. And sometimes the construction method that you're picking will help you, stay on track with those goals. So for us, we're seeing that panelized kits are saving some time and they're saving some money, but they still allow you to have customizations in terms of all of your finishes inside and out. Next. The acceleration that happens is that we're able to build the walls in the factory. It's not weather permitting, so we have projects now that are starting to be framed while we're trying to decide whether we're getting more rain or not, and they can be stacked up and stored in the factory. At the same time, the prep can happen on site, so the foundation can be installed, the utilities can start to be trenched and connected, and then the panels can arrive when the foundation has finished. We do stagger our wall panels, and then we follow up with a secondary delivery of the trusses. Technically, those could happen within a 2-day window, but just for planning purposes, we usually plan on them happening 1 week and then the next week. Next. So while the GC is preparing everything on site, I mentioned the panels are going to be framed up. This is an image of one of our projects getting shipped out. So we've got panels. We also ship the extra lumber that's needed to do blocking, other elements and framing pieces. In this case, we had a good storage area, so their trusses are shipped with it so that we could save a little time on transportation. Next. And here you can see the panels are getting slid off the back of the truck. One of the great things about the panelized system is that it fits everywhere. These panels get put on a small rolling wheel and can be rolled into the backyard by 1 to 2 people, and they can fit in a very narrow access point. So if you have a really steep hillside, it might be a better design to do something custom so you can step it down with a hill. But if you have a difficult to access site, the panelized kits really can get into almost any space. So that is a big advantage to the panels. Next. And then again, the roof trusses come out the next day. This is a 2-story unit we've done a few times now in Berkeley. So panels are not limited to just a single story. You are able to do multiple stories that you can do with modular as well. You can stack them, but I just want to make sure to illustrate that there aren't limitations on the volume when you're working with a panelized system. Next. So with panelized, we're going to have elements that are included. We're going to frame out all the tops, plan for where all the windows and doors go. With our company, you can always change out a window opening to a door opening and a door to a window without any cost changes. But you are intended to keep the envelope itself the same. So we include the exterior sheathing, the roof packages, blocking for the ridge and eave, loose plywood for the roof, and then extra documentation for how to install. So there is a kit of drawings that comes to our construction partners. So we have a great pool of contractors who will install them, and then they will take on finishing the rest next. One strategy we do, because when you pour a foundation, it's not always completely exactly the way it should be, is we keep one space that's 32 inches open. So we'll frame and deliver every component except this one spot. That way, as there is some variation on the site based on the foundation, how it was poured, we don't have to tear apart anything, and we can just custom frame this piece. And keep in mind, these are just 2x6 walls typically. They can be completely updated. If you wanted to change your mind on site and put a window where a door was, you'd have to check structural engineering, but you can do that. It's just 2x4 construction. So you're still able to make changes in the field, and servicing it afterwards is the same as you would if it was custom framed. Next. So as I mentioned, the foundation, everything underground still has to be delivered by the GC on site. And then the envelope and the internal systems, you get to make decisions on with the contractor and usually our team to help you streamline that. But you get a lot of say about whether you want to put stucco, like modular, for example, can't have stucco shipped, but it can be installed on site once it arrives. So there's not a lot of limitations to the panelized method. You can still customize inside and out. Next. So the panel kit is just one component of the whole building. So we still have great contractors. There's also a lot of really interesting new panels that are evolving and coming out. So we're using standard 2x6 framing to do our panel kits. But there's an engineer out of Berkeley called Verdant Engineering who has developed a panel that's with straw bale. So they're taking straw, like hay, that's a waste product from agriculture. They're putting that into a 2x6 wall system. They've just gotten a patent for it. It's really exciting, and they're building it in West Oakland. There are also some very interesting, more fire-safe panels that are a material called MGO, which is kind of like a very thin concrete that is sandwiched over EPS foam. So there's some other interesting ways. We're hoping to have a few more of those offerings available later this year. But it's an exciting way to think about streamlining a little bit of your project and getting it a little more efficient. Next. So again, I think the panel kit is not always exactly the right fit, but it's an interesting fit to think about. It can help you go a bit faster, have a very precise package come out in the field, and still give you the freedom of a custom design in terms of what the finishes are. Thank you. I'll switch over, pass the baton to Fatima, or you're going to do a little Q&A.
Yeah, well, one thing I wanted to ask, so you mentioned that basically any site essentially can accommodate this type of construction. Are there any sites in general, like characteristically, that you don't think are well suited for this, even if they could technically accommodate panel kits? Or maybe
sure.
like homeowners who are looking for a particular thing, like who would you advise?
Yeah, the panel kits technically can work everywhere. I think a really steep hillside, like as an architect, I would say for a hillside, you really want to maximize the design to not cut and fill a huge amount of land. And so if you're on a very steep hill, I think a custom design would be better so that you could maximize how you design it, cut into the different levels of the hill. I think that's just a smarter way to approach a hillside. If it's a mild hill, you can certainly make panels work. But if you get into a lot of needing to customize a lot of components, it's probably faster to just work with a custom framer and do it that way. So I think really the one thing I would think about is just not a serious hillside property.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Carrie. Okay, the last topic we want to cover is modular construction. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Fatima from Roof and Realm.
Thank you, Anna. And I should see your screen soon. Oh, Anna's screen. All right, there you go. So welcome to the world of modular. And what's exciting about this webinar today is like 10 years ago, if you went to go build something, you probably would run around the neighborhood and look for a general contractor to come in and build whatever it was that you're building. It's great to know that today you have so many options. And what's even more exciting is that the consumers are out there and they're excited about learning about these options. And this opens up such a whole new world for construction. And it's very, very exciting. We are Roof and Realm. I'm Fatima. I'm the CEO co-founder. We are a all steel modular builder. And what that means is we build using the modular construction method. Modular building is not a type of building. It is rather a process because the end result that you get is no different than something that Eddie and Sarmad would build, or perhaps something that Carrie would build. It is a traditional home and it meets all of the state requirements by in California, for example, all the California state requirements for building codes, and it also meets all of the Title 24 requirements. And this is such an important thing to know, because I would say the one challenge that we have in our industry, and I think Carrie probably gets a little bit of this in her world, the panelized construction, is there's a lot of misconceptions in our industry. So there's a lot of confusion between manufactured homes and modular homes. And what we build is indeed a modular home. So the end result is just a traditional home that you would get if you had it stick built. It just so happens to be built in a factory in mods and delivered to your site. We build ADU, single family, multifamily. What we do that makes us a little bit unique in the modular space is that we build using light gauge steel, a combination of light gauge steel for light gauge steel studs for framing. We also incorporate HSS steel. We also incorporate shear wall construction, and we ensure that all of our homes are engineered to be size. It's like the highest level of seismic construction you can get, and we incorporate everything in our home is fire retardant material. So everything from our roof eaves to our ventilation system, our insulation, cladding, everything that we use is designed to be a fire retardant home. So if you're in an area where fire is an issue, like where I live, for example, you're not going to have any concerns with ensuring that the home you need is going to meet those fire requirements, because it's pretty much a standard in our world. We're a full service company. We, just like everything that Eddie and Sarmad and Carrie build, we have a design component. The manufacturing of the home is done of the ADU is done in the factory. And of course, we have a delivery component using flatbeds. We use cranes, and we don't always have to use cranes. That's actually something that we've really focused on recently, is we want to make sure that we have every opportunity to deliver a home. So there's a lot of other methods, jack and roll methods that we can use to deliver a home. And of course, we always will require a general contractor to handle the on-site component of the installation, the foundation, trenching, utilities, all of that stuff. You can go ahead to the next slide. I kind of went over this already. So if you're not familiar with modular construction, you've maybe never been to a factory, Modular essentially means that I build in what's called mods. And a lot of people think that in the modular world, for some reason, they think that I'm limited or I have some template that I have to follow. But we actually are not. We have in our factory today, and this is a snapshot of the factory probably from about 2 weeks ago, because everything that you see that is green is now has rigid all over it. But we build in mods, and these mods can be anywhere from 10 to 12 to 14 to 15 feet wide. They can be anywhere from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 feet long. And there's also a misconception about ceiling heights. In most factories that you go to with modular construction, the max that they can do for ceiling height is about 9. Some can do 10. My standard ceiling height at Roof and Realm is about 11, but I even have vaulted ceilings that go up to about 12 feet. And we're doing projects right now where we have ceiling heights as high as 14 feet if it's a 2-story home. You can go to the next slide. One thing on the other slide is modular homes can be placed on any type of foundation. So whatever type of foundation your soil conditions require that an engineer can design, whether that's a raised foundation, a slab on grade foundation, a piered foundation, a hybrid foundation, we can go ahead and place our ADUs on that foundation. So really, really important part here is the distinction between modular and manufactured. And this is really, really important because when you as a consumer are out there vetting companies, it is important for you to know what you are vetting, what you are looking at, and why there may perhaps be a cost variation. And this is a very common thing that we see in our world, because somebody will go to a manufactured ADU builder and then they'll come to us and they'll say, oh my gosh, why are you guys so much more expensive? Well, we're expensive because of the requirements of modular construction versus that of manufactured homes. So this is something that you guys really should look into when you're vetting these projects. There are great manufactured home builders out there. They've been building for a very long time, and some of them actually will put out some pretty decent product. But it's important to know the distinction because there are big impacts in the future with regards to the property. Things like insurance are an issue. Design for like 100% is an issue. In the manufactured world, you are very, very limited to design. There are very rarely 2-story options with manufactured builders, definitely not in the ADU world. And because it is not built to the state building code, and because it does not meet energy efficiency requirements, you may not get financing on the project. The future value of the home is also at question. The type of foundation that it could sit on is also in question. So it's definitely, the manufactured home is not for everybody, especially if you're looking to ensure that the product you put on your property, meets the neighborhood requirements, adds value and or maintains value on your existing home. And when you go to sell the property, that you're not going to have any issues with that structure. So this is something really important, and we wanted to make sure that we focused on with modular construction. Just like every building process that Carrie and Sarmad and the team have gone over today, we have our pros and cons, right? But what makes us a little bit better? We are built in traditional construction. The entire building process is done on site, and that is done only after a building permit is achieved, only after all of the infrastructure has been put in, foundation is done, and then they begin stick building. In the world of modular, we run a parallel path with building the home, getting permitting, and site work in the ADU world. So once we submit your project to the permitting, to the building department, And we have completed a feasibility, and we know that there's no issues with building, with the project being approved. We will begin building your ADU in the factory. Once the building permit is achieved, the general contractor can immediately begin site work so that when that foundation is done, my ADU is ready to be delivered. And our typical ADUs are delivered within a week of that foundation being poured. We had a delivery today in San Jose, and that foundation was literally just poured about a week ago. So that parallel path really does allow you to save time. The other thing in the modular world that allows you to save time is the permitting process. When you walk into a modular company, we typically will have pre-designed ADUs that have already gone to the state approval process. Now, this does not mean that you're limited from a design standpoint with what you can do to these ADUs. In our world, roof and realm means you pick your roof, you pick your realm. So if your desire is to build a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom ADU, you can, from a design standpoint, you can change your roofs systems. You can do a sloped roof, a vaulted roof. You can vault the interior of the home. You can slope the interior of the ceiling. You can put windows. You can add stuff. From an interior design standpoint, we've really increased the amount of finishes that you can do. So you're really not limited to doing custom cabinetry or, a semi or a modular cabinet. You can put in any type of flooring. You really do have a lot of, you can make a lot of design decisions. It's just based on how the company operates. So in our world, we give our clients a lot of flexibility from the design process. Another modular company may not do that. The other modular company might say, you have to pick within these couple of packages, and then that's it. We've just increased that. So I would say that from a design standpoint, it's not specific to modular, but specific to how that company that you're working with operates. We build in a climate controlled factory. So if it's raining, if it's snowing, whatever's happening outside, it will not delay the manufacturing of your home. 9 out of 10 times, I actually will say 10 out of 10 times, my ADU is built faster than a building permit can be achieved. And if really all I did was build that ADU, I could build our smallest ADU probably in about 30 days, start to finish everything. And on some of the bigger ADUs up to about 1,200 square feet, you're looking probably at about 90 days or so. When we build these modules in the factory, depending on how many modules are in the ADU, I can deliver a 99% complete ADU, or I can deliver about a 90% complete ADU. So if you buy one of our, for example, OneShip products, it is delivered completely finished with some finished carpentry done on site. But if you buy some of our bigger ADUs where we have to seam together the mods, then those will be delivered with cabinets and countertops and tile. Everything will be done with the exception of things like hardwood flooring, roof, final paint, final touch-up. You can go to the next slide. We decided to build with steel. This is so important. Now, you could find a stick builder who is a stick builder, but not a stick builder. They're a traditional builder that can build with steel as well. So I'm sure they're out there. I haven't met any, but we decided we wanted to build with steel so that if you are making this investment into your family, into your property, that we give you a structure that can last for several generations, right? So steel framing is obviously, the integrity is incredible. It's fire resistant. It doesn't warp. It doesn't rot. It doesn't crack. It doesn't shrink. There's no mold in steel. You also won't get any pest destroying organisms like termites, for example. And it's just an added benefit to being in California and having the insurance challenges. We made this decision back in about 2019 after we launched our company. We decided to go back and, it was still early enough to where we can make this transition. And I think it was well worth it. You can go to the next slide. So some of our ADU models, I'm showing you guys this because I want you to see how we do this. So our one ship series, these are ADUs in the modular world that are delivered in what we call a single mod. These are awesome because when the ADU is delivered, it is literally finished. Like the ADU that we delivered today in San Jose, everything was done. Cabinets were done, countertops were done, flooring was done, baseboards, fixtures, lights, tile in the bathrooms. Everything was done. The only thing we do after the roof was done. The only thing we do after we land the unit is final coat of paint on the inside, final coat of paint on the outside, and the custom shower enclosure. So the time from when I deliver the unit to the time where I am done and off of your property, it can be as fast as, 30 days. And that's only because of the inspections that the GCs have to do on site for infrastructure related items. But these are a great option for anybody who wants the ADU process to go even faster. And you'll notice on these, I have different roof options. I have on the 35, for example, there's a sloped roof. And on the 49, I have vaulted roofs with windows. It's important to know that in the modular world, we're not limited to what we can do. That's so important, especially for a company like us where we want to continue pushing that design envelope. So modular can become more of a broad market offering and not such a niche. And so you'll see all of these different roof types that we've incorporated in here. You can go to the next slide, Anna. And these also other options you can see here on the 80, for example, that is a gable roof. And what we do here is, again, the inside is vaulted. So if your concern is that you are not going to get the design that you want, modular is not going to hinder that. We also have built 2-story ADUs. So if your neighborhood or your jurisdiction allows that, that's something that you can do as well. And again, high ceilings, all of these things are, it's again, just I can't highlight it enough. Like there's so much that we can do here. And from a lot of people, there are people that say, I want my ADU to look just like my main home. And if you're that precise and you want that level of detail, then I would say a team like Eddie and Sarmad is who you want to go to, where you go to an architect and you do it the very traditional way. But in a lot of cases, the houses that we deliver to are a lot older. And so they may not want to match the house, right? They may want something that has higher ceilings and things like that. So very rarely do we come across that. You can go to the next slide. And just so you could see how many, the level of precision and design that could go into these things is really just limitless. And I just literally cannot highlight that enough. In our world, we have a set of pre-designed homes. We will every now and then entertain a custom design where somebody comes to us, and if it's something very unique and it's something that we want to add into our portfolio, we would consider that project. So you're not limited. Again, it's how the modular company functions rather than the abilities of modular. Oh, and then some other single family homes, but you could see again, there are very little limitations in the world of modular. And it's really important for you to know this, so that all of these preconceived notions that you may have and your friends who said this or that are all gone. And a lot of the modular companies that I know operate this way. We will do the upfront feasibility so that it's very important because we would prefer to stay within the product offering that we have so that it's a more cost-effective process for the consumer. So we make sure we do a feasibility assessment, project management, all of these things we handle so that we can take a lot of the burden off of the client. But again, we will always continue working with great general contractors. And Eddie, you made such a good point that the general contracting partner is so important. It's important I would say in any project, because anytime that there are issues in an ADU project, it is never with the structure, it is always on site. So we want to make sure that we always have great general contracting partners as well. So that's really important. And I think that's it. Is there any more slides there? And just another ADU that you guys can look at.
Thank you so much, Fatima. Okay, well, we're 4 minutes from the end. I don't see any other questions from the audience. I'll ask you the same question that I asked Eddie, which is what's a type of site or project that you don't think is well suited for modular?
So for modular ADUs, if there is if your property, and again, you can reach out to the modular companies and they'll always assess the site but what we'll do is we will take a look at the site, and if there is no ability to deliver the unit using a crane or some type of a rolling method, then modular is probably not going to work on your project. And we will go over power lines. We have lots of deliveries where we've gone over power lines in Oakland and Concord and lots of areas. We can disconnect power lines and drop them if there's enough distance and the crane can stay within OSHA requirements away from a power line. We can deliver. What usually becomes a challenge is if it's transmission lines. So again, you can consult with a team member in the industry, and they can let you know if that's an issue. Typically, if it's got to a point where we know that there's just no options, there's no rear option, there's nothing, then we'll let the client know that this project is best suited for panelized or traditional stick-built construction.
Yeah. So site access is going to be, a thing that you're going to have to think about. Although it sounds like a misconception that power lines are not necessarily a no-go.
Yeah. That's again a very common misconception. Like if there's power lines, you can't deliver. Now there are companies that will absolutely not deliver if there's power lines. But for us, again, we will always push the envelope because we're crazy like that. We've done lots of deliveries, and we'll look for other options. Like we will look for, we delivered a project from a United States Army Reserve base that happened to be behind one of our properties. So we can get very creative, but if it's just too much, then we'll let them know that there's better options out there.
Yeah. I see we have one question from the audience around cost of a particular unit. I think I want to just reinterpret that and zoom that back to just talk about a little bit about costs for a second, because that's a very common question. We are and this obviously shifts a lot with the macroeconomic situation that we're in and construction costs. We have been advising folks in San Mateo County to assume about $600 per square foot in your cost estimates, but I wanna ask the panelists here what you're seeing, because numbers are always changing. And often we find that homeowners are very surprised by the costs. So do you all want to weigh in on what you're seeing in terms of project costs?
I can probably touch on that a little bit. I think the $600 is a fair kind of average. I think it's, as everything, it depends. Like you mentioned in the beginning, if you have a septic system, that's going to be by itself a whole different bucket of money that you need to keep it aside to spend on. If you have a hillside with retaining walls and whatnot, that's going to be kind of much more expensive. If you have something that's straightforward, obviously it's going to be less expensive. And again, with the finishes as well, what kind of finishes you're looking for. But I would say the $600 is a good number to start with, if you're kind of advising clients about it.
Yeah, I would agree with Sarmad. The cost of is a lot of people, and I think you guys would all agree with me, think that because it's a little house, it should be very, very cheap. But Eddie made such a great point earlier that just because the house is small, doesn't mean everything else is small. That you're literally doing every single thing that a typical home would require. Whether you're doing modular or panelized or traditional stick build, the infrastructure does not change. And I think that that's something that people will learn as they, vet their different options. And the complexity of your site will determine your overall cost. But we're kind of in that 550, 600 range if you do have, things like panel upgrades and I don't know, there's a solar requirement or a fire sprinkler requirement. It definitely can add on to the cost.
Okay, well, we are 1 minute past the hour. I see that there are, Carrie, you're typing an answer. Why don't we just go one last question for folks who can stay on, which is what's the recommended route if you want to do a add to your current home? So I'm going to interpret that to mean an attached ADU. Carrie, I'll pass that to you. What do you want to say?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, if you're going to add on to your existing home, you need to reach out to an architect to get that designed. You need to figure out, you need to get drawings of your existing home if you don't have them already. So you need what they'd call as-builts. There are a bunch of great affordable companies that can do that. And then you want to, when you're adding onto your home, whether it's an ADU or an addition, you have to understand what upgrades are going to come from that addition. So you can add, with a detached ADU, it's really wonderful because you don't touch the main house, but an addition sometimes is the best idea for your property. But you want to understand whether you're going to have to reinforce the structure on the main house or do more work. Like, let's say you add an addition on to a bedroom and it has a window that you need for egress, then you have to relocate that window or redesign some other function. So you really want to reach out to an architecture firm to start there.
We do that. We do that. We do the full design build.
Well, yeah, or design build. Sorry, Eddie, you're totally right.
Yes,
Design
yes.
build or
No, don't reach out
architecture.
to the firm. We're here. Reach out to
Okay.
us. Text me. Call me. We'll
Yeah,
take care of you.
And that's one of the things that I'll end here because I want to respect people's time. One of the things I didn't mention at the outset is the different types of organizations, companies there are. So there are pure architects where you're going to be looking for a GC. And then there are design build firms like EDR where they're doing the design and the construction as well. So when you're one of those early on things that you're going to have to think about that is affected by the construction method you go with is who is your team going to look like? What is your team going to look like? Okay, so with that, I'm going to close out. Thank you so much to Fatima, Carrie, Eddie, Sarmad. Really appreciate your insights. And as I mentioned, we will send this will be up on our website, and we'll also send a recording of this around to everyone who signed up for the webinar. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks to the panelists, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks for hosting us, Anna.
Take care.